Welcome, everybody, to the Cover 2 podcast. I'm Nick Neenan.
I'm Jared Smith.
And today we have a great show for you. We have a lot of NFL news to talk about. Cowboys with another big win, Jared. I feel like we talk about that every single week because they just keep winning these big games.
Rolling and rolling. Five in a row, baby.
I know you like that. The Bears, kind of dismantled the Rams' offense, beating them 15-9. So we have that to talk about. We're going to start the show with NFL, and we're actually going to be pretty much an NFL-centric show today. But we're also going to be discussing the winter meetings. Nothing huge has happened yet as far as Wednesday. No Machado signing, no Harper signing. No big trades except for one as far as star players, but Corey Kluber and Noah Syndergaard still haven't been traded yet. So we're going to move that a little later to the show, and then we're also going to do this. You'll like this too. In the Do You Care segment, we're also going to do a pick'em segment of some of the bowl games coming up this week and this weekend. And I know Jared's going to like that because there's a lot of stupid named games that he's going to like picking with teams that he's probably never even heard of. Some of them. So we'll do all that, but we're going to start the show with the NFL. And you know what, Jared, we'll just continue on the Cowboys since I started. And I know, obviously, you probably come into the podcast most days set and ready to talk about the Cowboys. So
always.
We'll discuss them. They're a big enough story. They defeat the Philadelphia Eagles. They pretty much eliminate the Eagles for the postseason. We're hearing rumors that possibly Carson Wentz is out for the season, but we're not going to discuss that yet, maybe until later in the show. But they win a wild game in OT, back and forth. Amari Cooper with another huge game. The Cowboys really put themselves pretty much to not make the playoffs, right? They're going to make the playoffs more than likely now, barring some crazy collapse and the Redskins and Eagles going undefeated for the rest of the season. So pretty much lock them in. Jared, your thoughts on the game and your thoughts on the Cowboys kind of heading into the playoffs?
Wow, that game was wild with a lot of excitement later in the game. A lot of, how should I say this without being negative to the referees? A lot of bad calls by the referees. And even as a Cowboys fan, there was a call that was made against the Eagles that probably should not have been called. It took away a touchdown.
Dallas Goedert?
Yes, the Dallas Goedert offensive pass interference call. That one was a little dicey, and obviously as a Cowboys fan, I liked it because it took away a touchdown by the Eagles. But in reality, looking at that play, I don't really think that was offensive pass interference. He didn't extend his arms completely. He did, shove Byron Jones, Jeff Heath, who was defending him, but he did not completely extend his arms. And per the NFL rule book, it says that a player has to fully extend his arms out in order for the referees to be able to make that call. And I believe I said that correctly. So, there were other calls. There was a Randy Gregory sack in the second half.
Dude,
where
that was all he did was tackle him.
Right. Well, see, the thing is, he was getting pushed down by the offensive lineman, and another rule stating that I'm going to state here is that the NFL says there has to be like a forcible and intense is not the right word, but basically a hard enough tackle on the quarterback. Basically, he was just wrapping up Carson Wentz, and yes, it was at his knees, but that was the only way that he could get to him. So there were calls in this game that I did not like on both sides. But fortunately for my boys, we came out on top nonetheless, and I love seeing the Eagles lose almost more than I love seeing my Cowboys win.
Yeah, and like I mentioned at the top of the show, the Cowboys, looking at the standings right now, they are 8-5, solidly in that fourth spot in the playoffs. And the next closest NFC East team is the 6-7 Eagles, who they defeated last game, and then of course the Redskins, who have a journeyman quarterback right now. So they're going to be in the playoffs. I'm really liking how Amari Cooper has played with this team because the Cowboys, the Cowboys offense was so mute. It's funny. I write this stuff down, like I look up, the Cowboys lost to this team or they lost to this team, but that was before they had Amari Cooper. Unless it comes down to let's say them and the Bears and certain stuff comes down to who's seated higher. Doesn't matter. The Cowboys are better than they were earlier in the season. If you have Amari Cooper the whole season, the Cowboys have a better record, and they're possibly in that 2-3 seed or something like that. So I think the Cowboys are in good shape. They have a very solid defense, and they still are going to get Sean Lee back eventually, correct? And then, of course, they have youngsters like DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory and all these different guys, Jalen Smith, that will, combine to make this a great team. Here's my question. Here's another question for you, Jared. Obviously, Amari Cooper is great and stuff like that, and Ezekiel Elliott. But my thing is with the Cowboys, once they get into the playoffs, because I don't know how much we're going to be talking about the Cowboys until the playoffs, because their games, like I said, they're probably going to make it. My thing is, the Cowboys will go as far as Dak will take them. And there's been a couple games, even though they've been winning these big games, been a couple weird and bad plays by Dak Prescott in some of these games, fumbles, stuff like that. What do you think about Dak? And do you kind of agree with me that this team will go as far as Dak Prescott plays?
A lot of people say that about the Cowboys, and I don't disagree with them. People say, I have friends and people who say, they want Dak to be the passer. Like if they were a defense going up against Dak, you want to force him to throw the ball 40 or 50 times, right? That's the recipe for success against the Cowboys. With Amari Cooper, Dak is showing that he can throw that deep ball and be successful with it, right? There was a deep pass that Dak threw to Michael Gallup, the Cowboys, one of their draft picks this year, who has been a very good receiver for them, and he overthrew him. He also overthrew him in the previous week against the Redskins. So the Cowboys receivers are able to get separation. Dak just needs to continue to get better with his accuracy. Now, Amari Cooper is kind of on another level as far as going up and reaching for the ball and his speed and that type of elite speed that he has. But I think really this is more than just Dak. I think this is finding a number 2 receiver that can complement Amari Cooper. And I'm not talking about Ezekiel Elliott, even though he is a very good pass catcher out of the backfield. Whether it's a Michael Gallup, whether it's one of their tight ends, Blake Jarwin had a career high in receptions and yards in the game against the Eagles last week. Whether it's Cole Beasley, the Cowboys need another receiver to step up, because here's what's going to happen now. Defenses are going to look back at these past couple weeks and see what Amari Cooper has done to those previous teams, right? They're going to say, okay, we're not going to let Amari Cooper beat us anymore. We're going to have to double team him. Well, guess what? You double team Amari Cooper, that's one less guy you can have in the box to stop Ezekiel Elliott, right? So it's basically pick your poison. So if you're Cole Beasley, if you're Michael Gallup, if you're Blake Jarwin, any one of these other Cowboys receiving threats, you're going to have to be able to win your one-on-one matchups because you are going to get single coverage. Yeah. So really, I think this is more about Dak being able to find a good relationship with these other receivers. Because, like I said, if defenses don't start double-teaming Amari Cooper, we already know they put 8 guys in the box to stop Elliott. So if you don't double-team Amari Cooper, you're just flat-out dumb at this point.
I like that point, too, because I saw a stat come across the other day about how Dak Prescott and Tony Romo's production in the fourth quarter when they're down is essentially the exact same thing. And so the Cowboys are essentially the exact same thing they were with Tony Romo, and that now with Amari Cooper, there's that Dez Bryant, right? So I actually agree with you. The Cowboys really haven't had that second receiver. That's one of the reasons they weren't able to, get past deep in the playoffs as well, back in the past. So you're right. That's the one correction I think they need to make, because I think their defense is better than they have been in the last couple of years.
Oh no, that's not a question. Their defense is very, very. I'm not going to say elite, but their defense is very, very good.
But you're right. So and Dak not being Russell Wilson or let's say Andrew Luck or anything like that in the passing game, he needs more weapons and stuff like that, because we've seen when he doesn't have weapons or he doesn't even have Elliott, he struggled. Right. And most quarterbacks would struggle. But so I agree with you. If you can find that second complement to Amari Cooper, man, that's dangerous. And the Cowboys have a legit chance to get to the Super Bowl.
They do. And the last thing that I want to mention as far as Dak goes is a lot of people, even though the Cowboys have been winning, right? They're 5 in a row, looking to go 6 in a row in Indianapolis this upcoming week. Dak Prescott loves to try to extend the play, right? If he goes through his progression reads and he can't find an open receiver, he likes to try to get outside the pocket and extend the play, which I am a huge fan for, right? Don't throw the ball away. Use your legs to run. He is a good enough runner to where he can extend the play. The problem is he, I believe, either leads the NFL or is like second or third in the NFL in fumbles this year by a quarterback.
It's not good.
So it's kind of a give and take. Some fan, it's okay because sometimes he extends the play. There last week against Washington a couple weeks ago on Thanksgiving, he extended a play in the red zone and ended up scoring like a 15-yard touchdown run. So that's the good. The bad is last week he had 2 fumbles on sacks. So he needs to be able to protect the ball better. I'm okay with you getting out of the pocket and trying to extend the play and run, but you also need to be mindful that the ball is your first priority. Yeah. 2 hands on the ball, right? Not just one, because both times he fumbled, he had 1 hand on the ball. And that's just kind of his forte right now, but I think that's something that he needs to work on. Keep your hands on the ball, and at the end of the day, just fall down, right? Live to play another play, basically. So that would be my one probably biggest thing that I think he needs to work on. He's getting better with his accuracy and his throwing, but protect the ball, protect the ball, protect the ball.
And by adding not adding another receiver, because you can't do that, but by developing that second receiver, there's less of the chance that he does even have to run out of the pocket crazily and look for someone open, because there probably is going to be someone open during his first or second progression. So I think all of this can get fixed by that good point you made earlier. All right, so let's move on to a couple other, I'm going to say, sketchy quarterbacks that are going to be in the playoffs this year. Mitchell Trubisky and Jared Goff. Now, this Sunday Night Football game, on what was a crazy Sunday in football, and we'll get to that later, a lot of crazy endings, one of the craziest endings of all time. This game was kind of a stinker, right? And it was defensive-minded, and for people that have watched this year in some of these primetime games, you got Chiefs and Rams and Saints and all these crazy high-scoring games. This one was a little bit boring. And then we had, of course, the Monday Night Football game that was a little bit boring as well, but we'll stick to Sunday night. What I saw in this game, and I know it was cold, and I know that the Bears did a great job of stopping Todd Gurley, and that the Bears are playing one of the best defenses in the NFL. But what I saw out of this game, the biggest take I took was not, the Bears probably won't beat the Rams in LA, right? I think that the cold in Chicago had something to do with it, but the Rams are going to be a higher seed than Chicago. So no matter what, they're going to play them in LA. So I don't think this game, matters much as far as, the Bears can probably beat them, but I think the cold had a lot to do with it. My main takeaway from this game was that these 2 quarterbacks, if I'm looking at playoff teams, are absolutely not the quarterbacks I want if you're on your team. You're looking at the Saints, who are the number 1 seed. You got Drew Brees. You're looking at Russell Wilson in Seattle. And even I think Dak Prescott has shown that he's a little better than Trubisky and Goff. And I think Goff, when Gurley's not going, he really isn't that reliable of a quarterback. I want to get your take. And even though the Bears won, I didn't think Trubisky played well either.
No, you didn't. Looking at the stats, Jared Goff threw 4 interceptions. Now, one of those
should have been 6.
One of those interceptions was at the end of the first half, and he threw up a Hail Mary in the end zone. So, okay, scratch that. Really threw. You're right. There were other opportunities for the Bears defense to get other interceptions. Looking at Mitchell Trubisky's stat line, he threw 1 touchdown. Great. He had 3 interceptions. Yeah. You're right. This game was completely ugly. And yes, the weather had something to do with that. But from the Bears standpoint, you guys get to practice and play in this all day long, right? I expected the Rams to come out a little bit more flat and not be as sharp as we know the Rams to be. But for the Bears, their offense with Mitchell Trubisky up to this point has been pretty good. We all know how good their defense is with Khalil Mack. I don't even need to sit here and explain that to our listeners. This is really about the Bears' offense and how non-existent it really was. Like, the Bears' offense really needs to take out the entire defense to dinner and say thank you guys for basically keeping us in this game and winning us this game. Because, it was 6-6 at halftime with 2 field goals, and then in the third quarter, the Bears finally get a touchdown. Really, what I want to focus on, I think you bring up a very controversial point with saying that, number one, that Jared Goff and Mitchell Trubisky are both lesser of quarterbacks than Dak Prescott right now. It's not that I disagree with you with that. I think the thing for both of these quarterbacks is they need to be in the right systems. And I think that's the same thing for Dak, right? I'm not trying to make this a Dak conversation, but I think that's the same for all of these guys. We've seen that with Jared Goff when he had Jeff Fisher as his head coach. And
terrible.
People were starting to say he was a bust.
But this is
right?
He looked like that again this Sunday.
He did. Is that his fault? Is that the coaching staff's fault for not calling the right types of plays? Is that also the coach's fault for not giving Todd Gurley? He had 11 carries. You're talking about arguably the best running back in the league, and he only gets 11 carries in a cold game in Chicago where you would expect the running game to be the the first thought of your offense, and he gets 11 carries. So to me, I'm going to blame this more on the offensive coordinators of both of these teams as opposed to the actual quarterbacks.
I get that, but every single throw Goff. I remember, my dad follows football, but he's not like the biggest fan. He tends to follow the Rams and the Chargers and the Cardinals and the teams he can watch. He doesn't even. We have Sunday ticket, and half the time he's watching CBS. Right? He's like watching the one CBS game. But so when the Rams are on, because he listens to the radio stations around here too. He likes to watch them because he hears about them a lot. And he kept saying to me, man, Goff is terrible. He just every ball's a duck. Every ball is thrown into coverage. And yes, the Bears defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL. I don't think anybody's arguing that. But Jared Goff is the number one pick in the he was number one pick in the draft. Man, he doesn't look like the number one pick. And Mitchell Trubisky was the number 2 pick. He ain't look like the number 2 pick, right? You know what I'm saying? So, and my intention was not necessarily saying that Dak Prescott was so much better than these guys. But Dak Prescott is, able to, when they're playing the Saints, make enough plays to win. Jared Goff, and I'm not going to say Trubisky didn't make enough plays to win. He made enough plays to almost have his team lose, right, in this game. I'm just saying, you look at these teams. The Saints, number 1 seed, you got Drew Brees, right? And then I'm kind of repeating myself, but Seattle with Russell Wilson. I know Russell Wilson made a terrible throw near the end zone. It was awful. But the guy makes a lot more plays than he does bad plays, right? And I just am looking at some of these teams, and if you have Seattle going up against Dallas in the playoffs, it's going to be hard for me not to pick Seattle because there's Russell Wilson, right? Or if you're looking at the Saints and Rams eventual NFC Championship game, possibly, it's going to be hard for me not to pick Drew Brees, right? Because I see Jared Goff in these big games. When Atlanta stopped Todd Gurley last year, Jared Goff didn't play well, and the Rams got eliminated in the first round, right? So I don't know. We haven't seen the Bears in the playoffs, so I can't compare them yet. But in big games like this, Trubisky did not play well. And even against the Cardinals this year, Trubisky played horrible. So, I don't know. If you're a fan of Russell Wilson or Drew Brees or you're a fan of the Saints Seahawks, I'd be happy going into the playoffs, at least in the NFC, because I think your team has a little better of a chance because you can rely on that quarterback to step up when Todd Gurley only runs for 28 yards.
I guarantee you this, the Rams will not make the mistake of only giving Gurley 11 carries.
Yeah.
I guarantee you
that needs a fix too,
I guarantee
absolutely.
you he gets close to 30 this week.
I think McVay outsmarted himself this game, a lot like Bill Belichick did on that last play in Miami. But so, stuff to look at, and hopefully, maybe the Rams will change it. They got 3 games to go. Like I said, they're battling for the number 1 seed. You definitely don't want to go into New Orleans if you don't have to. But they're comfortably going to probably get a bye sooner than later, so they can kind of test things out. And they got the Eagles, and I believe they play the Cardinals again this season. So they have some games where they can test some stuff out. So they'll probably be fine. But these quarterbacks need to improve their play before the playoffs start. All right, moving on. Big Thursday night football game this week. Moving to the AFC, we got the Chiefs and the Chargers. And if you're looking at the AFC standings, you got the Chiefs at 11-2. Chargers at 10-3. Chargers are 5th seed, so you look at the standings, you're like, Chargers are 5th seed. Well, they're 5th seed because of the stupid way the NFL does the playoffs, right? That they give the division winners home games, which doesn't make a lot of sense, and we've talked about that before. But Chargers have a chance to be the number 1 seed in the NFL Thursday if they can win. Jared, who are you picking in this game? And moreover, how are the Chargers going to go into Arrowhead and possibly beat this juggernaut Chiefs team?
They're not. And I don't see it happening.
Just that stern?
It is. And it's unfortunately because of the injuries that they had to their running backs. It's looking more and more like Melvin Gordon and their backup Austin Eckler will both be out for this game. Now, obviously Melvin Gordon is the bigger story. He's been out for a couple weeks dealing with some injuries, and he says he's getting better. But because the Chargers are on such a short week and playing on a Thursday, they're not playing on Sunday. It would be very, very tough for that team and that training staff to put him out there, knowing that he maybe isn't 90% or even 80%. So I don't think he's playing. Austin Eckler's in the concussion protocol, and once again, being at a short week, very tough to get out of that concussion protocol in just a few days. So because of the fact that the Chiefs will know the Chargers basically won't have a running game, and it's going to be all on Phillip Rivers, I am not a Philly Rib fan. I'm sorry. I think he's a good quarterback. I know that he has, been able to make plays with his arm, and he can make plays. He has Keelan Allen. He has a good receiving core around him. But if you expect him to just completely lead a team without a running game, I think you are crazy. And there is no way. Now, this Chiefs defense is not good, right? So you can get some yards against this Chiefs defense, but in Arrowhead on a Thursday night with that crowd noise, I think they're going to be able to get to Phillip Rivers, get a couple interceptions, and really, I don't think this game is going to be that close. I think the Chiefs win by double digits.
Wow, I disagree with you. Saying they have no chance with that Chiefs defense is just, it's kind of blasphemous, Jared. Because the defense is bad enough to where you say, hey, let's stop the run. Man, they still ain't going to be able to stop the run, Jared. This defense is that bad.
But the Chargers have zero running game. Tell me the Chargers running back right now. Who's going to start for the
Jackson.
Chargers?
I don't even know his first name. But
okay.
He played well against the Steelers. Steelers' defense is better than the Chiefs. I know the Steelers are kind of reeling right now. I'm going to make a point about the Steelers later in the podcast. But, they were able to go into Pittsburgh, a Midwest city, right, and go in the cold at night in a primetime game. Not a short week, but in a primetime game, and win a big game. They fixed their kicking problems. I get they don't have a running back, and you're right. Austin Eckler has just been banged up as he plays special teams and has been playing more than he's used to. But I think they have enough to possibly... I'm not going to say they're going to win, but to say they're just absolutely not going to win with that Chiefs defense, I'm going to disagree with that. I think Rivers is a good enough quarterback. I think they have enough weapons. I mean, they got 4 good receivers on this team, too. So I think there's more than enough weapons for Phillip Rivers to deal with, not having a running game. I think the Chargers' defense is also good enough to stop the Chiefs enough to give themselves a chance in the game. Now, Chiefs last week, number 1 defense in the NFL, the Ravens, and Patrick Mahomes is throwing balls without looking. So, it is tough, and the Chiefs really do look like one of the top, 2 teams in the NFL right now, the way they play, because that really impressed me. I thought they were going to lose the Ravens last week.
I did. I think everyone thought they were going to lose.
Well, I thought they were going to lose even before the game, because I'm like, number 1 defense, Mahomes, they're not going to be ready. Kareem Hunt's not there, stuff like that. But they've been, Mahomes is just such a damn good quarterback that he's able to win games for this team. And I think that will serve them enough to win this Thursday night game. But no, they're not going to get blown. I think the Chargers have a chance, for sure. That Chiefs defense is bad enough, and I think, Phil, this is the Chargers' year, it feels like, where I think they're going to win a game in the playoffs. I'm not going to say they're going to get to the Super Bowl, but I definitely think they have a chance if they can somehow avoid the Chiefs in the playoffs and playing in Arrowhead. But, hey, Jared, if they win, think about this. If they win this game, potentially 2 games in StubHub this year.
Oh, my gosh.
I can't wait. Jared, I can't wait. Can you imagine the Patriots or the Chiefs having to come in to LA to the StubHub Center to play? That's a home field advantage right there.
For the Patriots and the Chiefs, you're right.
The Chiefs don't want to come in and play in a soccer stadium. That's not impressive. You want to play in Arrowhead. New England wants to play in Gillette. They don't want to come in and play in a high school stadium.
I'm going to set the record right now. No team cares
Let's go Chargers, man. Let's go Chargers.
No team cares about going into StubHub. And you want to know why? Because they already know they're going to have the home field advantage.
Well, there's probably going to be more
fans. Look at every single game so far that the Chargers have played at the StubHub Center. And it doesn't matter who they're playing. That opponent
You're right, though.
probably has more fans than the Chargers do. Like, whether you want to blame it on the actual Chargers fans for not showing up or the fact that the stadium only seats 30,000 people, it's not a home field advantage. So, for me, if you want to base it off of that, then no, it doesn't matter if you're the Cowboys or the Packers, who you could argue are the 2 best fan bases in the NFL, or if it's the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
It really does not matter to me. StubHub Center is not a home field advantage in any type of way. So, really, the Chargers need to get over that really, really quick. For them, yes, they would like to be able to sleep in their own beds at night and wake up in the morning and drive themselves to work as opposed to being on the road. But if I'm the Chiefs, I'm saying, we're going to StubHub. We already whooped them once. Let's do it again. It's not that I have zero confidence in the Chargers at all. I just don't really have confidence in Phillip Rivers because of his resume so far in his career. Mm-hmm. He has not proven that he has been able to win in big games. This is his opportunity. This game is going to be completely on him. Like we've mentioned and kind of hammered into the ground, they do not have a running game for this Thursday night matchup. So if the Chargers want to be talked about in that kind of upper echelon of teams for this year, it's going to be all on Philip Rivers' shoulders. If he comes out and tears it up and lights it up and wins the game, then you know what? Then I'm going to have to eat my words. But I just don't have the confidence because of his record over his career in big-time games.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting. We need to get a break. But sure, I want to see those games and stuff up. Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine L.A., not having football for years and years and years, and then having, 4 home games, potentially. So, I'm rooting for the Rams to be number 1 seed. Yeah, and I'm supposed to be impartial or whatever, but I'm rooting for the Rams to be number 1 seed. I'm absolutely rooting for the Chargers to be number 1 seed. I want to see those games and stuff. I want to see Tom Brady and the Patriots coming into the StubHub Center to play. What kind of look would that be, right? Yeah, no. I don't know if those New England fans are coming over to all the way to StubHub to watch a game in the soccer stadium. Paying $100 for parking. I don't think it's happening.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
But, all right, we're going to get a break. We're going to change up the show a little bit, show format. Coming up next is Do You Care? And we also, in Do You Care, have a pick'em segment that do not want to miss. So that will be all up on the other side of this quick break. This is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
The 2018 Heisman Trophy is awarded to Kyler Murray of Oklahoma University.
I've worked my whole life to fulfill my goals, and but at the same time, man, I know there's a higher power looking down on me. He enables me to do all things, and for that, I'm grateful for the many blessings that God has blessed me with. And also, and I want to congratulate my boys here too, and Dwayne for their 2 historic seasons. It's been an honor to be with you guys the past 2 days and meet y'all, be with y'all's families, and I just want to say congratulations to y'all.
Lakers have landed one vet from Phoenix this season in Tyson Chandler, and they are reportedly interested in trading for Trevor Ariza, who would be a very good fit for this team. According to Woj, it would be a 3-team trade that would involve Contavious Caldwell-Pope, but no trade can be made official until December 15th. And KCP has a de facto no-trade clause because he would have to give up his early bird rights if he were traded by the Lakers before the deadline.
Football fight, but this one is off the field. The city of Oakland is now suing the Raiders and the NFL over the team's planned 2020 move to Las Vegas, calling it illegal.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Cover 2 podcast. Like Nick mentioned before the end of last segment, we are switching things up.
Yes.
And doing a little Do You Care segment a little early today.
That's a little earlier.
Yeah, a little Christmas treat
before
for you guys.
10.
That's right, before 10 o'clock. So usually I say, hey, Nick, you ask me, Jared, do you know what time it is? And then you say...
I say, it's time for Do You Care? But Jared, I want you to actually ask me the question.
Hey, Nick, do you know what time it is?
I don't know what time it is, Jared.
It's time for... Do You Care?
Hey, there you go.
I try to get that Nick
I got
voice.
you. Yeah. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Tribute to my voice.
I'm going to have to work on it a little bit because I was a little unprepared.
It's fine. You've been screaming about the Cowboys all weekend.
But for next week, I will get better at that. So it is another edition of Do You Care, where we are going to have 6 rapid-fire questions, and then we are going to do a cool little pick'em segment on the college football bowl games. But first... Do you care? Nick, you get the first question for today. Do you care that there is a new top 5 in the college basketball rankings?
I do, because the top 5 doesn't make any sense this week. And so if you look at it, it's number 1 is Kansas. We're talking about basketball too, college basketball. Number 2 is Duke. Number 3, Tennessee. Number 4, Gonzaga. Number 5, Michigan. All very, very solid teams. Close number 6 is Nevada. Here's my problem, though. So Duke is number 2. Right? I don't have any problem with Kansas. Okay. Duke is number 2. Tennessee number 3. Gonzaga number 4, as I just mentioned. Problem is, Tennessee just beat Gonzaga. Okay. This past week. They're ahead of Gonzaga. But Gonzaga beat Duke. And Tennessee beat Gonzaga. So how in the hell is Tennessee below Duke? That makes no sense. I know Duke has better talent, but if you're logistically looking at it, it doesn't make any sense because technically Tennessee would probably beat Duke. So I have a little bit of a gripe I had to get that out there. But come on. Let's go, voters. Let's be better with this. I get that you're trying to, put the talent, where talent is, but this just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, okay? Sorry. But it doesn't. Jared, do you care that during the MLS Cup this weekend, the attendance record was broken for an MLS game at 73,019 people stuffed into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta for that MLS Cup game?
No, I don't care because I'm just not necessarily a follower of the MLS. But I think it is really, really cool. I think one of the reasons why this game was able to break the attendance record was because this is the first year that the new Mercedes Dome is open. And I think there was just a lot of buzz, not only with the actual soccer match, but with people wanting to come and see this new stadium, right? So, in the United States at least, the MLS is definitely not, tops when it comes to sports talk. But the fact that there were so many people that came out to watch this match, I believe it was between the Portland Timbers and the Atlanta United, it is really cool. And I think it's showing that soccer is becoming more popular in the States. Now, is it ever going to become more popular than football or basketball or baseball? Probably not. But the fact that it is becoming more of a talking sports matter here, it is great. Myself, I really only watch soccer around the World Cup, but I'm starting to try to learn a little more about it and get more involved. So I think that's where a lot more people are here. Nick, do you care that the city of Oakland is suing not only the Raiders, but every other NFL team?
Yes, I do care about this, too, because very interesting story, Jared. They're suing over the relocation of the Raiders to Las Vegas. And I think that what their gripe is that the taxpayers are now having to pay all this money because the Raiders kind of just jumped ship and went to Vegas. There wasn't like a big, long debate. Of course, they could have moved to Los Angeles, but Chargers had first choice, and they chose to move to L.A., and now we've seen what's happened with that. But Oakland, I guess they wanted to move too, and they moved to Vegas. And what the city of Oakland is saying here is that was unfair. The city of Oakland didn't actually have a chance to even vote on it, or the people didn't have it, So they're suing the NFL and the Raiders. Here's what the interesting thing is, though. The Raiders said if this suit continues, they ain't playing in Oakland next year.
What?
And Jared, their stadium's not ready till 2020, right?
They're going to play in this StubHub Center? Come down here?
I don't know. I mean, it's where are they going to play? There's actually rumors, not rumors, but there's the thought that they possibly could go play down in San Diego for a year. Can you imagine, Jared, can you imagine the LA Chargers having to go play a road game in San Diego?
The first thing that popped
Dean
in my
Spanos gonna
head
get killed in the stadium, bro.
Is about 6 or 7 years ago, I went to a preseason. I want to preface that and make that very noted. Preseason Cowboys Chargers game in San Diego.
I went to a Cardinals Chargers game 3 years ago. So I'm gonna see what you say about this.
My point to this is there was a full section at Qualcomm full of Raiders fans.
Uh-oh.
And like 2 or 3 rows of those Raiders fans got kicked out.
Oh, there you go.
My question was, why in the hell were there Raiders fans at a Chargers-Cowboys preseason game? So there's probably a good amount of Raiders fans down there that I'm sure would be very, very happy about this. But to your point, having the Chargers have to go back to San Diego as the road team, very, very interesting.
Very interesting. Jared, do you care that the Lakers are showing interest in possibly trading for Suns player Trevor Ariza?
Hell yes, I am. I've always been a big fan of Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza was on the Lakers team when they won the 09 championship. I believe the 2010 championship as well, but definitely the 09 championship with Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom, all those players. And Ariza really is known as a defender. He has developed his three-point shot and become a little more of an offensive threat, but really he is so versatile and he is able to defend almost every position on the court other than maybe the center position. He has spent his last couple years with the Houston Rockets and really, helped them make it all the way to the conference finals. Shockingly enough, this offseason, he signed a 1-year deal with the Phoenix Suns. And I was very surprised by that because Phoenix was not going anywhere. They had the worst record last year, and they had the number 1 pick in the draft this year. And I believe they only have 4 or 5 wins so far this year. So
Terrible.
It surprises me that Ariza would leave a team that was so good for a team that was so bad and continues to be bad. So for the Lakers, even though they do need probably another shooting threat, I don't think it would hurt them in the slightest to bring in another defensive player that can kind of take some pressure off of LeBron so he does not have to guard the opponent's best player. Nick, do you care, last question for you, that Luis Valbuena and Jose Castillo both died in a car accident last week in Venezuela?
Yes, I do care because Valbuena was a former, he played for the Angels the last couple of years. So very sad news there. We as Angel fans obviously know tragedy like it's the back of our hand with Nick Adenhart dying in a car accident in Fullerton after he pitched his Major League debut game. I believe it was might not have been his debut, but it was one of his best games of his career. The stuff coming out of this is that they hit rocks in the road and they weren't wearing seatbelts, and unfortunately they died and the one person wearing the seatbelt did not. There's also rumors that there was, it's possibly a murder investigation because of gangsters in Venezuela. That stuff's not as important. Just kind of giving you some statistics there and some facts about what happened in the situation. But my heart goes out to any of the Angels players or obviously Luis Valbuena's family because I heard nothing but good things about this guy. I heard he was best dressed on the team last year. Real fun-loving guy. One of the best bat flips in baseball. So unfortunately, we won't see that anymore. But my heart goes out to his family and his friends. Because he was a real fun player to watch for the Angels. I know he struck out a lot and hit a lot of home runs and was kind of an all or nothing player, but still a good guy and a fun player to watch. Jared, do you care that Kyler Murray won the Heisman this Saturday?
I do care, and I think it's an amazing story and nothing but congratulations for this kid. Kyler Murray is what you would call just an all-around athlete. I know he played multiple sports in high school, and coming into college, he actually signed a contract with the Oakland Athletics, and I don't know how long or how much money that was for, but playing this year at Oklahoma, he is already signed, and technically the Oakland Athletics own the rights to Kyler Murray. Now, he decided that he wanted to live out one of his college dreams and play football for Oklahoma, which he did, and now solidified that by winning the Heisman. And I just think it's fantastic because you don't see many, not that you don't see it, but it is just rare to see many athletes excel like the way that he has in multiple sports. The question now is, will an NFL team still draft him? Will someone take a chance on him even though he is already committed to play for the Oakland Athletics? I don't think that will happen, but you never know. Someone might want to take a chance on him. I remember Deion Sanders back in the day played for the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta Braves. I believe he's the first and only professional athlete to play a football game and baseball game in the same day. He played a football game for the Falcons during the day and then took a helicopter or a short flight and a playoff game.
I don't think he actually played in the game, but he still was there.
Right, but
he was on the roster.
He suited up. He was on the roster. So just to wrap this up, congratulations to him. That's a great honor, and like I said, just proves that he made the right decision by playing college football. And now he goes to get to make millions of dollars with the Oakland Athletics.
Should be interesting to follow that story. All right, Jared. Sticking with college football, we got to end this segment a little fun. All right. So we're gonna do bowl games, pick 'em, right? And so what we're gonna do is, we're only gonna talk about the games. We're gonna do this every single week until the bowl games are over. And what we're gonna do is, so I'm gonna only pick the games for this week because obviously. I believe, there's 6 games coming up before our next podcast, so we're going to pick those. At the end of the whole thing, we're going to see who wins between Jared and I. Maybe we'll come up with a bet next week or something like that, and we'll see who ends up winning. A lot of these games, we don't know anything about these teams. We're not going to tell you here that we're experts about Louisiana Lafayette, but we're going to just pick them anyways, and we're going to see how we do, kind of like college game day style here. So, Jared, I'm going to list the names. I'm going to list the teams. I'll give the records to help you out a little bit because I have them written down right here. I didn't do any research on these teams either, so I didn't cheat. So, we'll start with this. So, all these games are on Saturday, except for the last one, which is on Tuesday. But Jared, here we go. We're going to start with the 6-6 Tulane versus 7-6 Louisiana Lafayette, the Auto Nation Cure Bowl.
Who
you got?
I'm going with the Raging Cajuns. They're 7-6. They have one more win than Tulane does. Both of these teams are from Louisiana. That's about all I got. I'm going with the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Raging Cajuns, too. I don't know anything about Tulane. I remember that Bryce Harper picked Louisiana Lafayette the other week to win their little conference championship game. I think if you're able to win a big game like that, I think you'll be able to win. A little analysis right there. So I'm gonna go with you on that one. All right, the New Mexico Bowl, 10-2 Utah State versus 9-3 North Texas.
I'm actually going Utah State here.
The Mean Green.
And I have heard of both of these teams. Utah State is actually not. They get some decent amount of talent for not really being well known. They are a Division I team, and they go up against Utah every single year, and they play very, very hard against them. They're 10-2 this year, a very, very admirable record. I'm giving this one to Utah State. I think they're a very, very underrated team that has more talent than many would suspect. So, no offense to North Texas. I'm sorry. But Utah State will get the dub.
I agree with you. Utah State did seem like a pretty good team this year, but I'm gonna go with the Mean Green.
Really?
I like their jerseys. I like the way they danced after one of their games. So I'm gonna go with North Texas on this one. All right, this next one should be pretty easy. This next pick, the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl. See, I didn't even know Mitsubishi was still making cars, so that's interesting enough that they're sponsoring a bowl game. But yeah, not only the Las Vegas Bowl, which will eventually be in the Raiders' new stadium. So interesting little fact right there. This game is not. It's ASU, who's 7-5 versus number 21 Fresno State at 11-2. Jared, who you got?
This one I really have no clue. From just a record standpoint and a ranking standpoint, many people will probably say that Fresno State should win this game. Arizona State started off the year playing very, very well. They beat the likes of Michigan State at home, right? And that was a big upset. And then they kind of stumbled the way they beat USC, who obviously wasn't really good. They beat UCLA. So it's like they had some good wins, but then they just had some kind of bad losses. I mean, they lost to San Diego State. They lost to Washington and Colorado, who are now ranked. But I think I'm going to have to go with Fresno State on this one. I think Arizona State is a little too inconsistent, and at the beginning of the year, I definitely would have said Arizona State, but now I'm going with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, Fresno State has had a good year. They won an interesting Mountain West title game against Boise State in the snow. But you know what? I'm going to go with ASU because I know N'Keal Harry isn't playing in this game. N'Keal Harry, their top receiver. I think Manny Wilkins, their senior quarterback that's played a couple years there now as their starter. I think he'll will his team to win in his final college game ever. He's probably not going to be an NFL quarterback either. I think he'll pull out a win against a non-Power 5 opponent. So I'm gonna go with ASU on that one. All right. The Raycom Media Camellia Bowl. This one's played in Alabama somewhere. You're going to love these two teams, Jared. Georgia Southern at 9-3 versus Eastern Michigan at 7-5.
Ooh, I'm closing my eyes. I'm flipping a coin. Georgia Southern.
I'm going to go with Georgia Southern, too. They're 9-3. I don't know anything about either of these teams. They're just it's funny that you always talk about these colleges that nobody knows, and you'd say like Eastern Michigan and Georgia Southern. Like, these are real colleges, though. They actually exist. They actually have football teams.
Hey, I mean, Georgia Southern went into Clemson and scored 7 points this year.
Hey, 7 points.
So
look at that.
That's something to build off of, I guess. Eastern Michigan, on the other hand, they beat Purdue, who beat Ohio State earlier in the year.
I'm still going with Georgia Southern. I'm sticking with my pick.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying that's a pretty big win for them. But then the rest of their schedule is not that good. So I'll just stop talking.
Yeah, who else do they play?
Don't want to know.
Yeah, but all right. The R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. I believe this is played in the Superdome.
It is.
Middle Tennessee versus Appalachian State. Middle Tennessee is 8-5. Appalachian State 10-2.
Oh, Appalachian State all day long, man.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows, and this is going back years, at least, 7-8 years when Appalachian State went into the Big House and beat Michigan the first game of the year. But Appalachian State, man, they put out some talent. That win against Michigan years ago put them on the map and really got them to recruit some good players. So even though they still don't get talked about a whole lot, it seems like almost every year to begin the year, they go and play a big-time ranked team. This year they went into the Nittany Lions Dome in Penn State, and they lost by a touchdown. So
one thing,
Appalachian State is for real, and I'm definitely picking them to win this game.
Yeah, I gotta go with App State. They're actually a proven pretty good team. I believe they were ranked at one point this year, so I don't see Middle Tennessee having any chance. I know that certain conferences and whatever end up being, but the App State's the better team. All right, this game is on Tuesday. It's the only game that we've talked about that's not on this first Saturday. So if you're watching games, this is just to let you know. UAB, who's 10-3 and quit their program like 4 years ago, versus Northern Illinois, 8-5, the Churbundi Boca Raton Bowl.
Wow. Okay.
It's a big bowl game, Jared.
That is a big bowl game. Another shot in the dark here. I'm going to go with UAB. They had a decent matchup against Texas A&M where they lost, but they put up a formidable fight. That is really the only game on their schedule where they did anything relevant. But because I just really know nothing about Northern Illinois, we're going to go UAB. And if my voice doesn't sound confident, it's because I'm not confident.
Going with the Blazers. I'm going to go with the Blazers, too. I got a cool logo, dragon blowing fire out of his mouth. So I'm going to go with them. Although I do know that when they quit their program a couple of years ago, the players really fought for it. And I think guys have gone there because it showed that they cared about football. The coaching staff, the players, they really do care about football. So I think that'll be enough. I think they're probably a good enough team to beat the Huskies of Northern Illinois.
I will say this really quick. I just looked up Northern Illinois' schedule, and listen to this. The first 4 games of the year. At Iowa, where they lost. But they went a tough game at Iowa. They lost at home to Utah, who's very formidable. Utah was in the Pac-12 Conference Championship game. Yeah. They beat Central Michigan, and then they went to Florida State and lost. And even though Florida State's not a good team this year, those first 4 games right there, that's a pretty tough schedule for a Northern Illinois
but
team.
But they lost every single one.
No, they did. I'm just saying they didn't sit here and play just cupcake games, right?
They probably have a harder schedule than UAB. They might have that experience. Right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying for them. Even though I guess we're still going to pick UAB, I'm going to give Northern Illinois some credit for at least scheduling what seemed to be tough opponents at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, see, the Pick'em segment wasn't completely a waste of time because we gave you some information on some of these teams. Georgia Southern, Eastern Michigan, right? We've been giving you information, right? We just said App State we think is a better team. No research done on that one, but or except for the Penn State game. But yeah, so we only disagreed on 2 of those, so it's only 2 of these games will apply kind of for the final rankings. But we'll just see how many we get right, and if any of us can somehow run the table.
Oh boy!
And then go to Vegas next year and pick these bowl games.
All right.
All right. But we didn't exactly. We just shut up. We need to go to break. We'll be right back. We're going back to the NFL unless during the break we hear that Bryce Harper signed somewhere. So we're going to go to the NFL segment one more time and kind of finish off the NFL for the podcast on the other side of this quick break. This is the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
4th and 9. They're chasing after him. Mahomes in trouble, flings it across his body, and it's caught by Hill. Hill has it. He came back for it, and he's out of bounds at the 12. An amazing play by the Chiefs. Tannehill will throw it, and this will end it after the shovel, or will it? Miami running around, circling. Oh, look out! From Gronkowski didn't have the angle. Touchdown! Oh, Kenyon Drake! A miracle! Miraculous in Miami. Good snap, good hold, and the kick is blocked, and the Raiders have beaten the Steelers.
We are back here on the Cover 2 podcast. Hope you're listening and enjoying that Christmas music. If you're listening live here on OC Rock Radio, I almost said Cover 2 Radio for some reason, but
that would have been nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. I guess technically this is Cover 2 Radio right now for the 2 hours that we're on, but nonetheless, that's not official at all. But so we're back here on the Cover 2 podcast. Obviously, we're going to go more into the NFL here. We have a couple more storylines we want to talk about. Kind of want to discuss the AFC playoff picture as far as the bottom of it goes. There's a lot of teams vying for spots, and there's still some divisions to be had. Obviously, you have Chiefs and Chargers this week for the AFC West. And you also have the Ravens and Steelers kind of pretty close in record, too, there in the North. So we'll talk about that. We will also discuss whether we think the Steelers will make the playoffs after a couple horrible losses, including a loss to the Raiders last week in Oakland. But we want to start the segment with something we kind of mentioned earlier. Carson Wentz, obviously the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, there's rumors that he's going to be out this Sunday against the Rams, and the Eagles right now are the 7th seed in the NFC. And, you know, if they don't have Carson Wentz, Jared, this is probably the end of the Eagles' season. What do you think about these rumors, and possibly Wentz being out for the whole season as well?
Yeah, these rumors are very, very surprising, and I did not hear going into the game against Dallas last week. I didn't hear really any reports of Wentz dealing with any back injuries. So not to say that he wasn't, obviously, but it wasn't serious enough for him to be on the injury report with that. So for the Eagles, that was obviously a very, very tough loss for them, not only just because it was a division rival, but because it puts them a full 2 games back of the Cowboys. And basically for the Eagles to get into the playoffs, they have to win out and also get help. But if they are without Carson Wentz going into LA, where he tore his ACL last year, crazier things have happened, right? Like Nick Foles taking over and leading a team to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, will lightning strike twice? I don't think so.
No.
I think really without having Carson Wentz this time around, I mean, they are going to be without Corey Clement, one of their really good running backs. They're already without Jay Ajayi. So I don't think they will have enough firepower this time to go around. It's not for sure that he's going to be out, but all the signs are pointing to him at least being out for this week.
Yeah, and in the broader picture, looking at the NFC standings, there's kind of the top 5 spots. Those teams are going to make the playoffs. Seattle is absolutely locked in the 5th seed after a win against the Vikings. They can't beat the Rams, so they for the NFC West, so they're going to be the 5th seed. And then, of course, you have Dallas, Chicago, LA, and the Saints deadlocked in their spots. So really just looking at that 6th seed spot, the Vikings at 6-6-1. They looked terrible against the Seahawks. I saw a stat the other day that said Kirk Cousins, who, Jared, remember, got paid $28 million and gets paid $28 million a year, all guaranteed from the Vikings, is 4-24 against teams with a winning record. So you see where money's wasted in the NFL there.
Wow.
So they're at 6-6-1 in the 6th seed. Then you have Carolina, who's lost 5 straight at 6-7. They have a win over the Eagles, so they're ahead of them. That's why the Eagles are 8. And Carolina plays the Saints twice. So probably the best they're finishing is 8-8 possibly, or more likely 7-9. And then now you have the Eagles. If the Eagles lose Carson Wentz, they're out of it. The Redskins already lost their quarterback and their backup quarterback. So, are the Vikings just going to de facto make the playoffs? I don't know. But the Eagles were that one team where people were like, okay, they have enough talent. They can make it. We know they play the Rams, but they can win their last 2 games. We know they play the Redskins for sure, too. But if he doesn't play, if you're a Vikings fan, start celebrating because you're probably going to make the playoffs. But it's a little disappointing for me that he's not. If he doesn't play, if he can play, he should obviously, because I think they are the best team out of those 4 for the playoffs, and I think they could possibly beat the Bears too in a playoff matchup as well. So I don't know. I'm a little disappointed, and I hope that Wentz isn't hurt, and I hope that he doesn't miss the whole year.
The one thing I will say about this Eagles team is, yes, they are very talented, and with Wentz, they can definitely win some games and get themselves into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I am very concerned about their secondary. I mean, they're playing with like fourth and fifth stringers right now, and that's one of the reasons why the Cowboys were able to exploit that secondary with Amari Cooper, where he was able to get over 10 receptions for over 200 yards and 3 touchdown catches. But yeah, this Eagles secondary is just not what it was. And when you're depleted and you have so many injuries and you're having to go to your reserve guys who are typically only used on special teams, that's going to happen. So that would be my one thing for this Eagles team. If you're going up against them, that I would not trust their pass defense at all. And I think if you're going up against a Rams team or a Saints or anyone like that in the playoffs, I mean, look what Dak Prescott did to you guys. So, and you don't think that the Rams or Drew Brees can do the same thing. That will be the one scary factor that this Eagles team did make the playoffs.
Yeah, and like we're saying, this 6th seed in the NFC is going to be the worst team in the playoff. I mean, you look at the AFC has a lot more talented teams. The 6th seed in the AFC is the number 1 defense in the NFL. So, it's a little disappointing that the NFC, which we thought very highly of before the season, we'll have to go back and look at our predictions and stuff, but that it's come down to the Vikings de facto probably making the playoffs. But, we'll still talk about it, and hopefully Wentz doesn't play, and hopefully the Eagles can go in and beat the Rams and make this final seed a little more competitive than it really is. But so hopefully Carson Wentz plays for sure. All right, moving on, going kind of to the AFC part of the segment here. There's a lot of teams battling, like I just said, for that 6th seed. You have the Ravens at number 7, who are 7-6, number 1 defense. The Ravens are at number 6. Ravens at, I screwed that up again. The Ravens at number 6, the Colts at number 7, Miami at number 8, and the Titans at number 9. And the interesting one here is the Steelers are obviously the 4th seed. They lead the AFC West, but they're 7-5-1, only a half game above the Ravens, and they split their season series this year with the Ravens. So Ravens number 1 defense. Let's start with this, Jared. Who do you think ends up winning the AFC North? And the Steelers, I had a stat on here. I forget how many games they've lost in a row, but they've lost a few games in a row here. And and the Ravens obviously very competitive against the Chiefs, kind of back and forth season. Who do you think ends up getting the nod in these last 3 games? Who do you think ends up winning the AFC North? Answer that first.
First of all, the Steelers have lost 3 games in a row. They lost at Denver 3 weeks ago. They lost that night home game to the Chargers, and then they just had that god-awful loss to the Raiders this past week. To answer your question, I'm going with the Ravens. And it's not by default, but I'm also looking at the Steelers, the rest of their schedule. They are home against the Patriots this week. The Patriots just got embarrassed. You know that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick probably aren't going to go home this week, right? They're probably...
No, give who the last 3 teams are for the Steelers.
No, that's what I'm saying. The Patriots are going to come out very, very upset and pissed, and they're going to want to, kind of redeem themselves. So the Steelers are at home against the Patriots. Then they go to New Orleans.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
And then they finish the season at home against the Bengals, and that's always a tough matchup because that's always just a very feisty, hard-nosed game. So that's the Steelers' last 3 games. Baltimore, even though they had a tough loss to Kansas City, played them very, very well. Lamar Jackson is going to stay their quarterback, by the way. Joe Flacco is apparently healthy, but they're going to keep Lamar Jackson. The Ravens, they're home against the Buccaneers. That's a win. They're at the Chargers. That is a very tough game.
Not that hard because StubHub isn't home field advantage, though.
True. Yeah. And then they finish off at home against the Browns.
Yes,
so that Ravens schedule looks a lot more formidable.
They're winning 2 out of those 3 games, and I would be extremely hard for the Steelers to win 2 out of their last 3 games.
Right. So yeah, I'm giving this one to the Ravens. The Ravens have also, let's see, the Ravens split a 1-1 with the Steelers this year. So if both teams were to tie, then it would go down to win percentage and all that other stuff. But for now, I'm going with Baltimore. And let's not forget the beginning, the first week this season when Pittsburgh tied Cleveland. I think that's going to come back to hurt them at the end.
Yeah, no, it probably will. And you look at the schedule, they're not beating teams they're supposed to beat. They didn't beat the Browns earlier this season. They didn't beat the Raiders the other night. So, and they didn't beat the Denver Broncos either because of mistakes. These just little tiny mistakes every single week. Roethlisberger throwing an interception, right? Stuff happening in them continuously going offsides in that Chargers game. And now the kicker falling on the final kick. And the only reason they got down there was a crazy hook and ladder play, too. So it wasn't like they were world beaters down the field wasting the clock either. They had to really pull out a trick there to get down there. So, yeah, I'm going to go with you. I agree with you. I think the Ravens win. I think the Ravens are actually, I'm going to say this, a better team this year. They got number one defense, and I think Lamar Jackson is creating an element of the Ravens offense that nobody expected from a normally pretty pro-style Ravens offense, right? So, I think teams are having trouble playing them. And number one, why the Chiefs had trouble playing them. The Chiefs' defense is god-awful. They can't stop anybody. But I think the Ravens are the better team this year than the Steelers. And I think, in turn, they will end up 9-7 this year and making the AFC North.
The one thing with the Ravens, and I like them keeping Lamar Jackson as a starter. I think he gives them a really good spark. And even though, obviously, he's not as good of a passer as Joe Flacco, he can do some more things with his legs. Lamar Jackson leads the Ravens offense in rushing yards at 475. That's not good.
Because they have like 4 running backs.
I understand that. I understand they don't have like one bell cow
Jared,
or
who is
one
the starting
guy.
running back for the Ravens, by the way?
That I don't know. They have Kenneth Dixon. They have I have to pull up there.
It's Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards. Okay.
Who's Gus Edwards?
Who is Gus Edwards?
I don't know.
Oh, all right.
I'm asking you. Ty Montgomery. Remember, he'll take the ball out of the end zone if you tell him not to.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So I that's the one thing that I am a little worried about when your now starting quarterback is your leader.
But that's his
in
thing.
rushes.
I mean, but his thing is to run. And if you're looking at probably total rushing yards for a game for the Ravens, it probably ends up being pretty normal compared to other teams. It's going to be better than the Steelers. Who's the Steelers' starting running back?
Well, James
Fitzgerald
Conner's
Toussaint.
iffy. Okay.
I
know. I'm just saying you don't want your starting quarterback leading your team in rushing yards for this season.
I'm
not talking about on a per game basis.
Ask the Panthers about that.
Oh.
Before they had Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
All right.
Hey, look, they can't even win a game. The quarterback's beat up. All right, so we think the Ravens are going to end up winning the AFC North. My voice got a little high pitched when I said that too. That was strange. But and so now I want to look at this. So the AFC South, more than likely, the Texans are going to win the AFC South. The Colts beat them last weekend, but the Colts are 7-6 and the Texans are 9-4. More than likely, they're probably not. The Texans are going to end up. They have an easier schedule to end the season. They're going to end up winning the AFC South. Here's my thing, though. The Colts beat them, and the Texans look like a team that was going to win every game. It looked like at the end of the season. You know what I'm saying? But I'm down for the Colts because I said you're looking at these teams making the playoffs. Now I said Lamar Jackson or Andrew Luck earlier this season. I said, who are you going to bet for that 6th pick? Right? You're going to really bet Lamar Jackson over Andrew Luck? I don't care who the talent is around him. Andrew Luck's making the playoffs. Now we look at it, and it's probably going to be the Steelers as the 6th pick. I'm even going to go a little further than this. I think the Colts are a better bet than even the Texans in their own division in the playoffs. This goes back to my whole theme of this whole podcast, that a star quarterback is a big deal for teams, and that's why I don't think that highly of Lamar Jackson. Deshaun Watson's still young. I'm gonna go with the experienced guy, a guy that has brought his team to the AFC Championship before, and without some deflated balls, might have brought his team to the Super Bowl. So I think the Colts are a better bet than even the Texans in the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs. What do you think about the Colts? The Colts also they're the 7th seed, right? So they do need some help in a way because they're not going to pass up the Ravens. Well, yeah, they're not going to pass up the Ravens, and then obviously they have to have the Steelers lose some games, so they do need some help. But the Colts have wins versus Miami and versus the Titans. They're the teams right behind them as well. So, looking at that, the Colts, if they get this help, like we said, if the Steelers don't end up making the playoffs, I think the Colts could sneak in, and I think the Colts are actually a formidable team in the playoffs just because of Andrew Luck. I think they can win one game. Not going to say they're going to get a Super Bowl or anything, but I think they can win one game and possibly upset a Texans or even the Patriots in the playoffs.
All right, you redeemed yourself a little bit because I was about to say that was a bold statement, Cotton, right there when you were initially talking up the Colts like they were
One
better
game.
than one game.
Because
yes.
this is what I'm saying, though. They're more likely going to play the Texans, right, in the first round. They can beat the Texans. They're going to win one game. I don't think they can beat the Chiefs or the Patriots, right? I mean, you never know. The Patriots are a little off this year, it seems like. I don't know about them. But, hey, I think if you're betting, man, and you go to that first wild card weekend, bet the Colts, right?
Yeah, no, listen, the good point that you make is that going into the playoffs, you do need not necessarily a complete veteran quarterback, but you need a quarterback that you can rely on and say, you know what, we need you to go out and win a game for us. Regardless of the other talent that we have. It's like, this is why we're paying you the big bucks. We need you to go out and win a game. That's what Andrew Luck can do now. There's no more concerns about his shoulder or about whether, how healthy he is. He is the man, and he proved that with a big win in Houston last week. So I hear you on that front. I still think that while the Colts defense is very young and it's coming along nicely, I think at the end of the day, I'm still more confident in Houston as a full team, as a full unit. I think they have more veteran pieces. I think their defense is better, and I think I would trust a Houston team, to make it as the AFC South champs over the Colts. Now, as far as the wild card
that's
goes,
going to happen. No, yeah, I agree with you.
As far as the wild card goes, I'm starting to believe it more and more that the Colts could be that team.
What Colts got Le'Veon Bell coming.
What really convinced me was that they do have wins already over Miami and Tennessee, who are right behind them. So that already gives them an upper edge. Now, the Colts, I believe the last game of the season, travel to Tennessee. So that could be a very huge game as far as who gets in the playoffs, as far as the seeding goes. But as far as Miami goes, they already beat them. So I think because of that, I think, yes, you do have to put the Colts in as well.
They've beaten the Titans as well. Can you just give me the last 3 games of the season? I know they played Cowboys first game.
This week.
That's going to be tough.
Next week, they're at home against the Giants. And then at
so they're probably going 2-1, right? I think they could possibly beat the Cowboys too. The Andrew Luck factor goes. If I'm saying they can get the Texans, I think they could beat the Cowboys. The Cowboys, they're running fast though. I'm not going to say they're going to win that game, but I think they do end up 9-7, and we're looking at the Steelers probably ending up 8-7-1. Colts probably the 6th seed, right? I'm telling you, watch the Steelers are not going to make the playoffs this year, and people are going to be like, oh my goodness, how could that happen? It's because you couldn't beat the Browns and you couldn't beat the Raiders. And good teams find a way to win. And the Steelers are not finding ways to win. But so looking at this, is there any chance Miami or the Titans can possibly get into that 6th spot as well? Now, just giving you some facts on this. Miami has lost to the Colts, so they do need some help from the Colts, obviously. But they do have a win against the Titans. And obviously that you look at that Hail Mary lateral play they did at the end of the Patriots game, is big for them for their playoff run. Do you think they have a chance, and do you think the Titans have any chance of making the playoffs?
The Titans are such a roller coaster team.
Well, here's the other thing real quick, too. They've lost to the Ravens, they've lost to the Colts, and they've lost to Miami. Every single team in front, so they need help. They need all those teams.
A lot of help.
And the Steelers to lose, twice.
They start the year off losing to Miami. Then they roll off 3 wins in a row, and then they lose 3 in a row. Then they come back and beat the Cowboys and the Patriots, and it's like, where'd this Titans team come from? Like, maybe they're legit. Maybe Marcus Mariota is really the guy. And then they come out and they lose their next 2, and then they win their next 2. It's like, I really don't know. Basically, you know what I'm saying is, I don't trust this team.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, they can compete probably with almost any team in the league, but do I trust them to go out and win a game? No. Can they? Yes. But am I putting money on it? Heck no. So really, this team I don't think deserves to be in the playoffs because I don't think they've been consistent enough. Like I said, they have huge wins against good teams, and then they have bad wins against teams that you think they should beat. And I just, in a 1-game series, I definitely don't trust them. And like you mentioned, they're behind the 8 ball because they've already lost to the top 3 teams that are ahead of them in the playoff seedings as of right now.
Yeah, no, it's not looking good for the Titans. I think Miami has a better chance, but Miami, again, they should be 6-7.
Unless Derrick Henry wants to go off for 4 touchdowns and 200 yards again, then then maybe they have a chance.
No, and like we're looking at Miami too. Miami should be 6-7. I mean, barring I don't know why the Patriots put Gronk on that last play. It didn't make any sense. He's not a defensive player, right? But so the Dolphins, they got winner's luck right now. But I think coming along, the only luck that's going to be in the playoffs is Andrew Luck.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, there you go. See, like it. But so predicting the playoffs right there. It's interesting. Some of these top seeds are already kind of decided, but you're looking at these bottom seeds. There's still stuff to play for, and there's still games to watch. So, nonetheless, talk about that. So, quick things to mention before I bring up the last topic I want to tell you. Vikings fired John DeFilippo, their offensive coordinator, who's supposed to be like this big head coach this year. They fired him and promoted a guy that's been with the staff since the Brad Childress days.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's their quarterbacks coach. So he's now the offensive coordinator. Obviously, they lost, 21-0 against Seahawks. Looked terrible. Kirk Cousins is a piece of crap as a quarterback. So they fired him. Larry Fitzgerald passed Jerry Rice for the most receptions with one team, 1,286.
Congratulations, Larry Fitzgerald.
And then what was the last thing I was going to say? Oh, Alex Smith dealing with major complications to his leg injury. There's a chance he never plays football again. We'll obviously get more information on this story again, but just want to update the listener on that. That Alex Smith is really dealing with stuff, and that his injury is a little more serious. And then speaking of the Redskins, obviously they got crushed by the Giants. Odell didn't even play in this game. They had Josh Johnson enter the game. I think this is more. I want to spend the last 4 minutes. I know we talked about this last week. Man, they should have signed Kaepernick, right? And I think that we're now seeing when this kind of things happens. If you're a fan base, do you care about the kneeling of a player that much to where you're giving up your season? Because the Redskins have given up their season, not even at least having Kaepernick come in for a tryout. If Kaepernick comes in for a tryout and they say, he's not fit, right? He's been doing his activism and stuff like that. He's not ready to be an NFL quarterback. That's understandable. But to tell me Josh Johnson and Mark Sanchez are going to be much better bets than Colin Kaepernick, I just don't agree. And it looks like the Redskins threw away their season now, especially after this game against the Giants, who are not a very good team. They lost 40-16. Yeah, it looks like they gave up their season. Now, Jerry, I just want to get your opinion on this. It's more so evident that Kaepernick is being blackballed, at least by most teams in the NFL now.
Oh yeah, it unfortunately it took this situation for more people to start to realize that. And I'm not saying you.
No, it did for me though too.
But I mean, the proof is in the pudding. It's very, very simple.
He's better than Josh Johnson.
Right. You would rather an organization, the Redskins, would rather bring in a player who has been his name has been associated with multiple domestic violence cases, right?
That's right.
And you still sign him even though he is currently on the commissioner's exempt list, rather than even having a workout with Colin Kaepernick, right? They won't even. John Gruden said they thought and spoke about bringing him in for a workout, but they won't even bring him in for a tryout.
Come on, man.
And yet they have already signed Reuben Foster to their team. It's blasphemous is the word. I can't even come up with enough words.
Josh Johnson hasn't played in the NFL since 2012.
There's certain words that I would like to say that I cannot say on the air. This right here proves what this Redskins organization is about. Mm-hmm. And it's the fact that they know diddly squat about how to run an NFL organization.
They can't get their name right.
They can't. Number one, that's a whole nother. This team shouldn't even be allowed. This team should not be allowed to play football. I'm serious. From their name to how they bring on players who allegedly are involved in domestic violence cases. This isn't the first association they've had with a player like this. Mm-hmm. Yet they with all that scrutiny that they're willing to take on there, they're not willing to even attempt to take on a player who took a knee and is now one of the leading advocates and advertisers for Nike, right? So there are so many things wrong internally with this organization. They shouldn't even be allowed to step on a football field and play football until they get their in-house stuff fixed.
Well, I mean, the fans aren't going to be there for the next. They were leaving.
Why would they? Why would they?
40-0 at halftime?
Yeah. Are you kidding? First of all, it's cold.
Man.
Second of all, your team's not going to make the playoffs. Third, your starting quarterback and your backup quarterback are out. Like, if I was a fan of the Redskins, why would you pay money to unless they're giving away seats? unless the seats
to
were
be giving
free.
away seats. I mean, I'm sure they have a home game then.
They do. So
Who do
their
they
next
play?
2 games are on the road. They're in Jacksonville and in Tennessee, and then they finish up with the Eagles at home.
Yeah.
So no way.
They would have. So looking at the standings, right? If they had Colin Kaepernick, let's say I don't know if they win either of these games. They might be able to beat the Giants. Then they have a chance against the Eagles, a team fighting for the playoffs at the end of the season without Carson Wentz, probably. You know, just saying.
You know what I love?
They also have beaten the Panthers too.
Right.
So they actually would be ahead of this. So they would actually be in the right. I'll tell you one decision that the Redskins made right was not giving $28 million to Kirk Cousins.
Oh my gosh.
Right. They made that decision.
Wow.
Right.
They've done one thing right this year. Congratulations.
Fantastic.
One thing I want to mention, and this is just as a Cowboys fan, and I love to say this, is the New York Giants, like 5 weeks ago, were looking to get like the number 1 seed. They were just god awful.
Don't you love that too?
And all of a sudden, they've like reeled off some wins, and now they've kind of like taken themselves out of like the top 5 for the draft. Now, I know this is obviously way ahead, and this is in April, but I just love the fact that the Eagles, the Redskins, and the Giants will all be clumps.
They're all going
like
to be 6
somewhere
and 10.
in the middle.
They're all going to be 6
I
and
love
10.
it. I love it because obviously, as a Cowboys fan, I don't want to see those teams get a top 5 pick, and it looks like neither of them will. So, hey, Giants, keep on winning because we know you guys aren't going to make the playoffs. Hey, Redskins, even go out and win a game or 2. You can win against Jacksonville this week. Go, keep winning. The Eagles, you probably going to lose to the Rams this week, but all of you guys keep winning and just keep hurting your draft seats.
Man, if the Giants would have won one more game this season, they would actually be a possible playoff team the way this NFC playoffs has ended up. But more than likely they're not, unless the Vikings fall the way down.
I don't think they're mathematically eliminated, but it's...
Well, no, you look at it because the Panthers. You'd have to look at if did they play the Panthers this year.
They did. Yes, they did, and they lost.
So they're probably out. No, they have no chance. Never mind.
Did.
Because the Panthers were the only team that they possibly would have a chance against as far as the seeding goes. But no, they're probably out. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, Giants probably end up 6 and 10, 7 and 9, 12th pick. Fantastic, right? But I don't know. I guess their fan base is probably thinking that they have Barkley, they have Odell, players like that. Oh, if they get a quarterback, they're probably close to a playoff team anyway. So, but yeah. Fun to talk about. All right, so that's ending with the NFL. We had a lot to talk about. That's why we did 2 segments. Clearly, we could fit 2 segments in there. On the other side of this break, our final segment is going to be about the MLB Winter Meetings. We have a big trade that happened right after our podcast last week, involving one of the MLB's most talented players. Also, a couple key players have signed back with their teams. We have a new manager in the AL East, and Jared and I will end the segment by kind of asking each other, where will these players end up, or will these players get traded? We have 4 star players for you, and we'll guess where they'll end up, or if they'll even make a move during the winter meeting. So all that coming up next on the Cover 2 podcast here on OC Rock Radio.
Essentially said that they don't think Troy Tulowitzki could ever be an all-star caliber contributor, above average to all-star contributor ever again in his career. That was sort of almost, in a sense, saying goodbye on the possibility of Troy Tulowitzki being a regular for this club at that point. Troy Tulowitzki continues to try and work his way back, trying to recover from the foot surgery on both his heels last offseason, trying to get back to be a big league player. And I think the Blue Jays, where they are, have decided that they just need to part ways with him. It's a very expensive hit. This decision's going to cost him $38 million. That money was committed. It's what they owed him for his 2019-2020 salaries, plus a $4 million buyout on a 2021 club option.
But obviously, huge trade yesterday for the Cardinals. This is the big bat that they've been seeking for quite some time, and he's going to fit so well into the lineup. You see the deal right here. It's Goldschmidt for Weaver, Kelly, Andy Young, and a competitive balance round B pick. We'll get to the Diamondback side of this shortly. But for the Cardinals, this is the middle of the order masher that they've needed. It's going to result in the move of Matt Carpenter to third base, where he may be defensively challenged. Okay, that's a potential detriment to this. But, my goodness, Paul Goldschmidt.
Cover 2 Podcast is back live on OC Rock Radio for our final segment of the show, and we are switching topics, going to Major League Baseball, and the winter meetings, are currently taking place. But there have been at least one major trade that happened right after our show last week. With Paul Goldschmidt,
big player,
being traded from the Arizona Diamondbacks to the St. Louis Cardinals, and I know Nick has a lot to say about this, so I want to jump right into this before we get into some other major players who could find new homes for next year. But Nick, your initial thoughts on this big trade?
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing this segment last week, Goldschmidt would have been in it. Our little prediction where he would go, and the Cardinals would have necessarily not been one of my picks. Paul Goldschmidt, one of my favorite players in the MLB, and he's been a great guy for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Their kind of keystone player, their star, and he gets traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Diamondbacks are they don't have a lot of money usually every single year. That's why these last couple of years of spending money on Greinke and other guys like that have been kind of surprising, and they've had some success, but weren't able to beat the Dodgers in last year's playoffs, and they weren't able to make the playoffs last season. So, they're starting to kind of do a slow rebuild. They get a lot of good pieces back. Luke Weaver, Carson Kelly are very, very good young players for the Cardinals. They also get another young pitcher in Andrew Young. And some kind of compensation draft pick as well. So, and what I got from most owners and GMs was that they got this was a very good deal for both teams. But the big part of this is Goldschmidt goes to the Cardinals, and now the Cardinals have a pretty formidable lineup. They still have Matt Carpenter, Marcell Ozuna, Yadier Molina, and now you stick Goldschmidt in there. Now they got a legitimate star. You're looking at the Cubs, who are always pretty good every single year, and you look at the Brewers, who are going to be a little less this year because last year was kind of their year. Then, of course, you have the Pirates, and I'm forgetting the last team for some reason. No disrespect, but the Reds. So disrespect, they suck. So the Cardinals are looking like possibly the best team in the NL Central this year after that move. They have enough pitching. They also have Jose Martinez in their lineup too. So I like this deal for both teams. I think the Diamondbacks have been kind of talking about possibly trading Goldschmidt for the last 2 years. They finally did, and I think they got enough back to where you're not concerned. But man, if you're a fan in Arizona right now, you got the Cardinals at 3-9. You have the or 3-10, I believe actually. The Suns have won 4 games this season. The hockey team is never good, and now the Diamondbacks are kind of regressing a little bit. Not fun to be a fan of Arizona teams right now.
No.
Yeah.
Now I'm not sitting here and questioning this trade at all, because if you have an opportunity to get the player the likes of Paul Goldschmidt, you go out and do it, right? 1,000%, no hesitations. But I'm looking at the Cardinals, and last year Matt Carpenter, their first baseman, he had 36 homers, right? So
MVP candidate.
Yeah. It was a little surprising to me, and I think to you as well, because like you mentioned, you didn't necessarily have the Cardinals in this trade conversation with Paul Goldschmidt. So what is the Cardinals thinking now? Because now you have Paul Goldschmidt, who's obviously going to be the starter, right? But then you have a very, very good backup in a sense.
Well,
Matt
he's
Carpenter.
also a first baseman. Goldschmidt's a first baseman, and so was Matt Carpenter.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What happens now with Matt Carpenter now that he kind of is going to have to take a back seat?
Well, Carpenter, I don't think he's going to take a back seat. He has played second base in the past. He's played third base. I think what they're doing here is that they're taking offense before defense in this scenario, and we see this with the Yankees a lot. You have Gary Sanchez at catcher because you want to get him in the lineup, but he's a terrible catcher. Right.
Well, the Yankees also came out and said he's going to be their catcher going forward.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. But they don't. It seems like they have an opening at first base too. So I don't know why they don't just move him to first base. But talking about that, so this is kind of the same scenario. They're going with a star in Paul Goldschmidt, and I think the only way you make a guy like Carpenter kind of uncomfortable this year is if you get a guy like Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, if you look at top 10 players in the MLB, at least top 10 hitters, Paul Goldschmidt is up there. It's going to be hard for me and possibly other guys to find 10 better hitters than Paul Goldschmidt, right? So I think what they're doing here is Carpenter's played other positions in the past. I believe he even started. He wasn't a first baseman when he started out either. So Goldschmidt, he'll definitely play first base. And, they'll take the hitting with the defense on this one. I think that's what they'll do. But, yeah, interesting thought you brought up. Because not a lot of people thought about, hey, Matt Carpenter's a first baseman.
Right.
And we're bringing another first baseman. But Carpenter has played other positions in the past, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I think that, like I said, they're going to take the star player over a little deficiency in defense this year.
Right. All right. No, that's fine. I need an explanation because I wasn't... I know the talent level is different, and I understand that. But when you have a player who has played well, especially last year coming
Yes.
off an MVP season, it's kind of like, okay, you know, where are we going with this? Where's our lineup going to be? What's our rotation?
And looking at the Diamondbacks after this trade, obviously they get a couple of young pieces. Do you think they should continue kind of this rebuild and possibly trade a Zach Greinke? Because they already lost AJ Pollock to free agency. Do you think they just go with the full one, just kind of try to quickly rebuild with a lot of young players?
It's tough to say because they were over 500 last year, right?
Yeah.
They were 82-80. I think in a sense you almost have to because you I don't know if you give up Paul Goldschmidt if you're saying we're not looking to rebuild, we're just looking to kind of add some other pieces. You know what I mean?
Give away your best player.
You don't trade away your best player
And
like
they
that.
lost Corbin as well. Yeah.
Right, and then think that you're still going to really contend. So if they get the right offer for Greinke, then yes, I think you do at least have to consider it. I don't think you can sit here and say, no, he's untouchable, and you know he's gonna be our building piece.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the right
anyways,
right.
yeah.
I don't think that's the right scenario to go with as well. So yes, if they get the right offer, or if they get enough, building pieces and return prospects, then yes, I think you do go that route and basically just say we're having a full rebuild and deal with the next 3-4 years of being bad.
Yeah, well, and you look at the I almost said the NFC West.
Oh, Lord.
The NL West. Obviously, the Dodgers are at the top, been in the World Series twice. Colorado Rockies have a better roster and were in the playoffs last year, too. The Giants can only get better. And in the Padres, they've been linked to some possible trades and stuff like that, too, that we'll talk about later. So, the Diamondbacks, if you're going to rebuild, I like this trade with Goldstein because they got a lot of young, major league young players back. Luke Weaver and Carson Kelly, they're young major league players, right? They're not some guys that are 18 that were just drafted, right, or taken out of Cuba. They're guys that can still play. But I think if you're going to trade Greinke, you're going to trade these other guys, Dave Peralta or someone like that, you have to get major league talent back so your team can still compete and the rebuild is slower or the rebuild is faster rather than slower, because every team in the NL West is either going to be at the top of their game or getting better, and Diamondbacks are the only team it seems like getting worse, right? So, be interesting to watch those two teams. I think the Cardinals are in a very good position in the NL Central. All right, looking over some signees and some released players. We'll start with the released player. Troy Tulowitzki was released by the Blue Jays. Now, he's been oft injured. He kind of proved a lot of, let's say, Colorado Rockies doubters, right, where if you go into play in Colorado, your stats are kind of inflated. That seems to be true about Troy Tulowitzki. He was an MVP candidate in Colorado. I know there was injuries, but he came over the Blue Jays and has really been underperforming every single year. So they release him. They leave $40 million on the table. They're clearly
a lot of change,
they're clearly rebuilding too. That's a clear sign of that on a tough AL East with three teams there at the top. And so, where do you think possibly Tulowitzki ends up? Where do you think a good fit? Do you think he goes to a contender, or do you think he kind of just goes somewhere to play a lot and kind of redo his career a little bit?
So here's the thing, right? He's owed $38 million.
Yeah.
Okay, at this point for him, and I think you brought up a good point that a lot of his stats were very inflated when he was with Colorado, and now he's kind of come back down to earth a little bit. I think for him, understanding where he's at in his career, I think he needs to not bite the bullet, but understand. Like I'm willing
Carmelo
to
Anthony.
take less money to go to a team that has an opportunity to win. Right? I know that I can still play. He has still a good skill set, but I don't think he's a guy that you're going to say, all right, we're gonna throw $200 million at him and he's gonna be our franchise. Right? We're gonna build around him. If he has that type of mentality, then I think things are going to continue to go spiral downhill for him. If he comes in with a clear mindset and says, all right, I'm willing to maybe take a back seat, take a little less money to go to a contending team, then I think that will suit him and whoever that team is a little bit better. If he's willing to kind of check his ego. And I'm not saying he's an ego guy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at a certain point in an athlete's career, when you've kind of been the headliner forever, it's tough to take that step back and say, all right, I'm willing to, take one for the team in a sense. So, and the other thing is he hasn't played since July.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time since he's played, right? It's not like he was able to finish out this year healthy. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries.
Was helped off the field. Yeah.
Well, of course. Right. But it's it's time for him to say, all right, what am I really here for? Am I here to just make money, or do I want to actually finish my career potentially with a ring? Mm-hmm. And if he does that, then now can you name off a couple teams that you think he would like to go to? Because off the top of my head, I don't necessarily know.
You know what? I mean, I didn't do much thought on that. It was, I do agree with you. I think he ends up with a contender. You never know. I'm going to throw this team out there. Didi Gregorius is out for the Yankees, and I think if they don't end up signing Manny Machado, Tulowitzki is probably a pretty solid, serviceable shortstop in the meantime there. And that's a team. He didn't necessarily have to play every single day, but that's a guy you can put in your lineup. And, like we mentioned with Colorado, Cracker Box Park, lots of home runs. Tulowitzki could probably inflate his stats a little bit in Yankee Stadium, maybe get another contract. Maybe sign a one-year deal with the Yankees, do well, and then get that contract, something like that. But I don't see him joining like the Angels or the Diamondbacks, the White Sox, anybody like that that's not contending. It is going to be a contending team for sure. I think the first one that comes to mind is the Yankees if they don't sign Manny Machado.
Okay.
So,
and I don't think the Yankees will sign Machado.
Yeah.
I think they need to focus on pitching and other areas of their team. If you ask our resident baseball analyst, Mr. Alex Silva, who is a Yankees fan, and I'm sure listening to this podcast. If not, he will be listening later on. I think he will agree with me that the Yankees should not sign Machado, and they should focus on other things. So
just don't trade Miguel Andujar. He's going to be a very unhappy guy.
Unhappy camper.
Yes. Okay, so moving on to guys that have been signed. I'm just going to go through these, and I want you to tell me what do you think this is the biggest signing is. So Andrew McCutchen, 3 years to the Phillies, and then a couple players re-signed. Jay Happ re-signs with New York after they lost the Patrick Corbin sweepstakes. Nathan Eovaldi, World Series hero, signs on a 4-year deal with the Boston Red Sox. And Carlos Carrasco re-signs with the Indians for 3 years. Out of those 4 deals, which do you think has the biggest impact?
I'm going to have to say the Red Sox and how they re-signed their reliever. And, I mean, I know
really a starting pitcher, though, too.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Right. But the way that he was used this postseason was in that span. I think he, coming into this season and coming into this postseason, he didn't really have necessarily the best record or the best stats. And I didn't know too much about him coming into this year. But the way that he played, he deserved a big pay raise. And I think the Red Sox understood that. And really, it's more the versatility. He can be a starting pitcher. He can also come out and be a reliever. I think he can do multiple things and do those things well. So for the Red Sox, you say, okay, we're not only signing him because we like him as a potential starter. We know that if injuries happen down the road and we make it to the playoffs again, we can then say, hey, you know what? We need to throw you in the bullpen, or vice versa. I think he's one of those interchangeable pitchers that are very, very valuable to a team that, he's not going to be that sexy signing or the guy that you say, oh, man, this guy's going to get us over the hump. Obviously, the Red Sox just won, so they don't need anyone to get them over the hump. But he's a mainstay guy that if you're a Red Sox fan or a baseball fan, you definitely know about him. And I think the Red Sox made the right decision in bringing him back.
I'm going to go most important signing, Carlos Carrasco. And it's not necessarily for Carrasco's production with the Indians. It's to what this leads to. Coming into this offseason, Carrasco was a free agent for the Indians, and then you have Trevor Bauer and Corey Kluber, who they have been linked in trade talks. And this is going to segment into our last part of our podcast here, but Carrasco getting re-signed, it shows that the Indians more than likely are going to trade either Trevor Bauer or Corey Kluber. So now this leads into this little game we're going to play. Where will they end up? Where will they get traded? Will something happen during the winter meetings? So we're going to answer. We got 4 players for you to talk about. Corey Kluber, Noah Syndergaard. Both those players are still currently on a team, so they have to get traded to move teams. And then, of course, Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. So let's start with Kluber, since we're talking about the Indian. Jared, will he get traded? And if he does, where does he go? So if he doesn't, don't say a team, because then there's just no, But do you think he will get traded? And if you do, what team do you think he ends up with?
I do think he gets traded. If the Indians are smart, they trade him to the NL and get him out of the AL. I think that the Dodgers could use another great right-handed pitcher. Obviously, you have Kershaw and you have Walker Buehler, but as we've seen with Kershaw, he hasn't been able to stay completely healthy the last couple of years. Walker Buehler is still very young, but I think having the likes of a Corey Kluber with this Dodgers team to help solidify that pitching rotation, I think that would be a lot. Now, what would they have to give up for him? I'm not exactly sure of that. Like you mentioned, it would have to be a trade because the Indians still own his rights. But the Dodgers are definitely the first team on the top of my head that I would say, yes, they could use a pitcher the likes of Corey Kluber.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's the Dodgers. That's when the rumors have been as well. We're not trying to, one of the reasons we're not discussing rumors on this show is because there's just so many. There's enough topics to talk about. We don't want to talk about rumors if they don't happen. But the rumors have been the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are the team. They have enough pitching depth and outfield depth, like the heads of the Dodgers have said, to make a deal. They have enough to trade for Kluber. I think he ends up with the Dodgers. And I think this trade happens during the winter meetings. I think we'll be talking about this trade and Corey Kluber as a member of the Dodgers next week on this podcast. But yes, I think he does, and I think he's the guy that gets traded instead of Bauer. Bauer's younger, more controllable and stuff like that. So I think it is Kluber that gets traded. So now moving to a free agent. Jared, you kind of mentioned Manny Machado not going to the Yankees. Where do you think he ends up? Because he has to sign somewhere.
He does. This is... I'm not ruling out that the Dodgers could re-sign him.
Okay.
It's a little tough just because of the way things ended, but I don't know. I don't know enough about the situation yet, so I think I'm going to have to, I guess, stick with the Dodgers for right now. They would be kind of stacked and loaded at that infield position if he were to return. I don't necessarily know who would really take a chance on him because the way that when he first got to the Dodgers after he first got traded, he was kind of on a hot streak and it was like, oh man, this trade really worked out, right? And then as the postseason went on, I don't think he really shined as much as many people thought. So I think that potentially could have hurt his free agent stock a little bit. I think he definitely still goes to a contending team, but I don't really know any other team off the top of my head other than the Dodgers than I think he would land with, or that would be a good fit for him.
The rumors have been the Phillies, and that's because they have so much money. They don't really have a starting shortstop necessarily for the future. I'm going to go, I think he does end up signing with the Phillies because of the money. But imagine this, Jared. There's another team in the AL East that could sign him. It's the Atlanta Braves. Now, I know they have Dansby Swanson, right, who was the number one pick in the draft, traded from the Diamondbacks in a crazy deal that ended up not working out for either team. But if they get Machado, their infield's looking like Freddie Freeman, Ozzie Albies, who was the MVP candidate at one point last year, Manny Machado, and Josh Donaldson.
It's kind of nasty.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to happen because I think the Braves want that control of Swanson not having to pay him for a while, and he hasn't really earned that money yet. But if that happens, man, the Braves are one of the best teams in the NL. So I'm just saying that I'm going to go with the Phillies, but watch for the Braves. I think that could be a really cool situation. All right, back to a player that could possibly be traded. Thor, Noah Syndergaard of the New York Mets. Do you think he gets traded? If you do, where does he end up?
I don't think he gets traded. I think the Mets keep him. This situation, listen, the Mets at one point, more towards the beginning of the year, weren't they playing really well? Didn't they have not a chance? It was still before the All-Star break, but weren't they playing well?
I'm trying to remember. I know at one point they were god awful.
Right. Well, I know obviously they ended the year under 500. They were fourth in the NL East. I get all that.
They had a lot of injuries last year.
Right. But it's like, okay, you get Robinson Cano, right? You don't do that for no reason.
And with Diaz as well, yeah.
Right. So what if you do trade Noah Syndergaard and give him up? What are you getting in return? Yeah. Because I think Noah Syndergaard is still a very, very good player that can help your franchise. And if you're going to get the likes of Cano and these other players, why would you then be trading one of your other stars? So I think they keep him and retain him and try to build on what they have within the team.
I agree with that. I know there's been rumors that he's possibly the Padres are interested in the trade. The Padres trying to trying to increase their rebuild. They've signed guys like Hosmer last year and stuff to make it go quicker. But I agree with you. I don't think he gets traded. I think the Mets, I don't know what they're doing with their organization, but if you can keep DeGrom and Syndergaard in your rotation, why wouldn't you? right? So they don't got to pay him yet, so might as well keep him. All right, here's a big one, Jerry. We got 3 minutes left on the podcast. Bryce Harper, free agent, star player, one of the best players in the MLB. Where do you think he ends up?
I think this is probably the easiest one, and I think you already mentioned it with the team that's willing to spend a lot of money, and that's the Phillies.
Yeah.
Right? Their, I believe it was their GM, or someone that came out and said that they are maybe even, quote unquote, maybe even spend stupid money. Ooh. So when you come out and say something like that,
too.
They do, but when you're an organization and you come out and say something like that, you're basically saying to every other team in the league, like, let's make a deal, right? Like, we're willing to negotiate and talk and make something big happen. So obviously, they get McCutchen, right? And they're definitely not done. I think right now, because of the money factor, I think that puts them in the top spot to land Harper.
The money factor is a huge thing because that's Harper's thing. I mean, he declined. A couple of stuff came out of the winter meeting so far. The Nationals don't believe he's coming back, and they already offered him a $300 million contract, $30 million a year, and he said no immediately. So they don't think he's coming back. The Yankees have already admitted that they have too much depth in their outfield. There's no reason to sign Bryce Harper. Not going to play him at first base. So I think it's down. There's two teams here: the Phillies with the money. And there's an interesting thing going on with the Dodgers because they're frantically trying to get money off their payroll, trying to trade Matt Kemp, who I think is owed around $20 million, trying to get Yasiel Puig off the books. He's not owed as much, but they're still trying to get him out back. That would mean that they're going for Harper. There's no other player that they're going for besides Bryce Harper. So I think he actually is going to end up with the Dodgers somehow.
Really?
And I think the Dodgers know this is... We haven't seen this with Andrew Friedman-led teams before, but this is the first time where Friedman kind of, I think, he hadn't lost 2 World Series in a row, right? I think you start thinking a little crazy at that point, and you go, you know what, I'm sick of this. We're winning one, and I don't care what we have to do. They've admitted they have outfield depth. They're willing to trade players. They're not going to stick with this whole depth thing. It doesn't work, and I think he ends up with that. I don't think this happens, by the way, in the winter meetings, by the way. I think this happens probably in January. So I think we'll be talking about this a little more. But I do think the signs are pointing a little bit more toward the Dodgers possibly signing him because they're trying to clear space, and I think that'd be the better spot for him, but he'd have an immediate chance of winning World Series too. Whereas the Phillies, you're still rebuilding. You're a good team. They almost made the playoffs this year, but you are still rebuilding. So I'm going to go with the Dodgers. Not biasly, I think because they're clearing cap space, I think that's the choice for him. All right, there you go. You hear the music right there. It's the end of the podcast. Good podcast today, Jared. We got a lot to talk about. We'll be back next week talking about what happens during the winter meetings because they'll be over and more about the NFL and these playoff races we discussed today. For Nick Neenan,
I'm Jared Smith.
This has been the Cover 2 Podcast.